Hi folks, Dana back again. First off, I hope you had a very happy St. Patrick's Day weekend. I hope you ate corned beef and cabbage and wore green clothes so you didn't have to get stung. Pinched, I mean, just like Link here. He's already still in the spirit. So today I wanted to talk about ideas for the potential next Legend of Zelda game that Nintendo will release, the next home console Zelda game. A year ago, I said that I thought Breath of the Wild was the best Zelda game ever made. I think that even more so now. The amount of interactivity with the world, the physics engine, the open world, just boundless awesomeness, goodness of the overworld, it's probably the best game I've ever played. It literally encapsulates everything that I love about video games in it. So today, I wanted to talk about how Nintendo could continue to refine and tweak the things that they so brilliantly did with their monumental game, Breath of the Wild. So, without further ado, I'm going to talk about my ideas for the next Zelda game. To that end, please enjoy my video. Starting off how I want the introduction to work in the next Zelda game, Breath of the Wild had one of the best, if not the best, intros I've ever experienced in a single-player game. So for the next game, Nintendo should keep it open-ended. We don't need any tedious tutorials like we had in Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword, please. Furthermore, it should even allow access to some of the dungeons and towns right off of the bat, allowing us to really explore the world to our heart's content from the very start. What was brilliant about the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild is that it was technically a tutorial, but it didn't feel like one in the slightest. Even within the Great Plateau, it felt like there was entirely a self-contained game there. It felt like sort of a miniature version of the Breath of the Wild overworld as a whole. I want the next Zelda game to follow in these footsteps and expand on it even more so. While I enjoyed the story in Breath of the Wild quite a bit, I think it should be much more in-depth next time around. I want a more active villain brought back, such someone along the lines of Girahim in Skyward Sword or even Zant. I, for one, want to see the return of Ganondorf. No, not Ganon, Ganondorf. Calamity Ganon really didn't have much of a character to him at all. He was just sort of a mindless beast. He wasn't anywhere near as intriguing as the very best Zelda villains. I want a Ganondorf along the lines of Wind Waker, but even more fleshed out than he was in that game. Moreover, they could perhaps give Link the option of having a sidekick. I say option because I think it should not be mandatory like it has been in a lot of past Zelda games. And if they do a sidekick, I want it to be a character like Midna who's actually intriguing. Perhaps you could have multiple sidekicks that you can choose from throughout the game that could even fight alongside Link. One of these sidekicks could be someone like Zelda. She could do similar to what she did in Spirit Tracks to help Link fight and solve puzzles, but in a much more expanded role this time around, instead of just possessing enemies. Moreover, if the sidekicks do give you hints, please make them optional. I want all the characters in the next Zelda game to be as fleshed out as Groose was in Skyward Sword, or any of the characters in Majora's Mask were. I want the storyline to really be the very best that Nintendo has ever done. Skyward Sword, if there's one thing you can say about it, it had an amazing story for a Zelda game, and I would love to see that come back, but be able to be better integrated with the new open-world Zelda formula that Nintendo has already brilliantly shown that they can do. I think Nintendo can do this. Breath of the Wild had the best game overworld I have ever experienced, so this could be a tough act to follow. I want it to stay as open-ended as it was in Breath of the Wild. Keep the climbing, maybe minimize the rain a little bit. Also, definitely keep the advanced weather effects. I want them to bring back the physics engine and expand on it even more. Have bigger towns, allow us to finally see both Castle Town and Hyrule Castle in all their glory in this amazing open world scenario. I, for one, would love to be able to talk to the residents of Castle Town, climb atop their buildings, and yes, go inside Hyrule Castle and talk to the King of Hyrule himself, if she should be in the next game. Moreover, I want them to bring back underwater swimming. That would provide so much more depth to the overworld than we already have, and give us even more to see, honestly, especially if they bring back more ocean sections. Furthermore, I would love them to bring us more means of transportation. Breath of the Wild had quite a few and they were all really fun, but I'd like to see even more. Say, maybe you could ride loft wings, bring them back from Skyward Sword and be able to soar above the world of Hyrule and look at it from the sky. That would be amazing. Perhaps have faster means of aquatic transportation, like faster boats that you could use in the sea areas as well as Zora's River / Lake Hylia. There's just so many things they could do now. I feel like Nintendo's only scratched the surface of what they could do with their overworld, and that's saying a lot, considering just how perfect Breath of the Wild's overworld felt to me. I would love to see more in-depth towns, like Goron City return from Ocarina of Time, but like I said, much bigger. And I would love to see even more varieties of towns. I love that there were a lot of sort of stables in Breath of the Wild that had different characters, but if there were more towns, because they were all destroyed in Breath of the Wild, and they were all basically just piles of rubble, I'd love to see all these towns in all their glory and be able to really talk to the residents of Hyrule and see their lives like never before. This is another area that could easily be a tough act to follow, as Breath of the Wild's gameplay was nearly perfect, so really keep everything that worked. I, for one, love the breaking weapons, but maybe you should tweak it just a little bit, as well as have it as an option perhaps. Now, I definitely want to keep the general control layout, as I thought Breath of the Wild's control layout was pretty much perfect for me. Link should be able to jump and climb anything that he wants. Maybe, to expand on the stamina vessel idea, instead of needing to get a set of clothes to climb faster, perhaps you could somewhat customize and upgrade Link's ability so that he's actually able to permanently climb faster over the course of the game. Breath of the Wild also had plenty of gameplay variety given its size. I, for one, was astounded by the amount of gameplay variety we had in Breath of the Wild for the size it was. Whether it was riding sand seals in Gerudo Desert, being able to surf in the snow areas, being able to use the physics to move these minecarts and go on a mountain, being able to climb, ride horses, use all kinds of different weapons, use rafts. I mean, the whole shebang, really. So, I would love them to expand on this even more. A great way to do that, I think, would be to expand on the Sheikah runes idea, which I thought was a great idea to update the Zelda gameplay, and add new exciting ones, such as the hook shot, claw shot, or even the beetle from Skyward Sword, but made to be much more functional than it was in that game. Much more tweaked and able to do some more interesting reconnaissance stuff and even take out enemies again. That would be awesome. Furthermore, some of these runes could even be used to summon different means of transportation, like I said before. Imagining being able to summon a robot loftwing, maybe, or a motorboat. Yeah, I know that might sound far-fetched, but hey, we were able to ride a motorcycle in Breath of the Wild's DLC. Nothing's really off limits anymore, except for Space Zelda, which I don't really want to see, because we already got great space franchises at Nintendo. It's called Metroid. But I digress. I think that the gameplay in Breath of the Wild was so darn near close to perfect that it would really all Nintendo needs to do is look at the things that they could use to expand on what they've already so brilliantly done. Also, I definitely want them to keep the cooking mechanism, as I had so much fun with that in Breath of the Wild, making all these different dishes. I would love to see an even greater variety of dishes that you can cook return in the next Zelda game. As well as crafting. I would love to see even more variety of clothes that Link can use, and even customize to some extent. Where it came to the enemies, Breath of the Wild definitely emphasized quality over quantity. As though there were more minimal enemies in other Zelda games, they were all very distinct and they all had great varieties of movesets, and they were all much more powerful than most enemies of Zelda games in recent years have been. That said, I want more variety to the enemies. I mean, I want Pose back in Zelda. Pose, for some reason, one of my favorite Zelda enemies, and I was a little bummed that they weren't in Breath of the Wild. So, Nintendo, bring back Pose. Also, bring back the Dark Nuts, finally, and Iron Knuckles, Stalfos, Wolfos, Bubbles, Tektites, things we haven't seen, and of course, Octoroks, which, yeah, Breath of the Wild did have, but come on, you gotta have Link have his Octoroks, because, you know, he can't wait to... Yeah, I'm not going to go there. As far as bosses, well, Breath of the Wild's bosses were really fun. They were all very similar in design and even movesets. I want more bosses along the lines of Volvagia, like giant dragons or mobs of spiders, swordsmen, and sea monsters and land monsters, just to name a few. I want more variety to the bosses, and I want them on a bigger scale than they ever have been before. Breath of the Wild had a lush world full of wildlife, like bears, wolves, foxes, birds, squirrels, the whole shebang. Now, I would love to see Nintendo expand on this. Why not be able to actually have the ability to train some of these animals and even use them as an actual optional mount? Like, how awesome it would be to be able to ride a bear into battle, which you could technically do in Breath of the Wild, but you couldn't register them at a stable. I'd love to see that as an option in this time around. Moreover, what if Link could actually have packs of wolves assist him in a fight, or train his pet fox theoretically to help seek out treasure or hidden item areas? Also, Nintendo, let us pet the dogs! Come on! I want to pet a dog now! So dungeons, these are the biggest things that I want to see changed or vastly improved upon in the next Zelda game. Now, while Breath of the Wild's Divine Beasts were all really fun and objectively speaking very well designed, I thought, they didn't quite scratch that dungeon itch for me. I want Nintendo to bring back the more thematic dungeons and temples, but have them blown up in size by like 100 times or so. Like, imagine a fire temple, or like a shadow temple, or a sand dungeon that was on the scale of one of the provinces in Breath of the Wild. Dungeons could be all interconnected even, like underground. They could have multiple entrances and exits. You could go to any of them right off the bat. Like Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild, you could even approach some of the boss fights in the dungeons right away, but by solving the dungeon's many traps and puzzles, it makes taking down said bosses much easier. Not sure exactly how it will work, maybe through acquiring an item or freeing the sage in the temple before you fight the boss. There could be a mix between traditional temples even and some divine beast-like creatures, but make them more varied and make them longer and have more thematic variation, like I said. I also want there to be tons of variety to the tonality to each dungeon, which is something that games like Ocarina of Time did perfectly. I want a dungeon that is as memorable and jaw-dropping again as Majora's Mask's Stone Tower Temple was, which is one of my all-time favorite video game levels. Furthermore, I loved the shrines in Breath of the Wild, but some of them were certainly much more memorable than others were. So definitely add some of these extra shrines to help spruce things up even more and give us more optional content, but maybe have around 80 to 100 shrines rather than 120, and mix things up more to really give that quality over quantity feel. Like I said, Breath of the Wild had a massive overworld that more than made up for the lack of dungeons in the game, in my opinion. But to really make the Zelda game even better than Breath of the Wild and really make it the ultimate Zelda game, Nintendo needs to find a way to blend the old school dungeon design with the new open world formula. And I think that Nintendo can do this after having learned from what they did in Breath of the Wild. Nintendo should keep all of the rune abilities that they already have, because frankly they're awesome. That said, I want them to expand on this even more. What if there are rune abilities that can make Link bigger, like the Giant's Mask in Majora's Mask, or smaller, like the Minish Hat in the Minish Cap? What if there are rune abilities that can make Link temporarily invincible, but at the cost of his stamina wheel? That said, I think that some of these rune abilities should be available right off the bat, and others you'd have to search for either in the dungeons or in the overworld itself. What if there was rune abilities like the Lens of Truth and Ocarina of Time that even let you see invisible things? Now that would be pretty darn cool if you ask me. I love the rune abilities in Breath of the Wild and had so much fun messing around with them, still do, and I'd love to see Nintendo bring this back and add even more. Like Breath of the Wild, Link should have access to many types of clothes, some of which might make Link stronger, more stealthy, and maybe even faster, and able to withstand heat, cold, or other temperatures. Moreover, what if you had the option to automatically have certain clothes equipped when you entered certain areas, like say in the more frigid environments, you'd automatically have your cold resistant clothing, same with warm resistant clothing. That way you wouldn't have to open up the menu every time you entered one of these areas and needed to put your clothes on. I for one loved the breakable weapons system in Breath of the Wild, as it made me think much more strategically in combat. Furthermore, it pretty much forced me to rely on a greater variety of weapons than it might otherwise have done, which I loved. That said, tweak it just a little bit, have some weapons last a little bit longer before they break, and maybe even have the option to turn the breaking weapon system off for players that prefer the more quote-unquote traditional style of Zelda combat where weapons don't break. That said, keep the terrific weapon variety of the swords, spears, axes, clubs, sickles, fire, ice, lightning rods, the whole shebang, Deku leaves and the like. Really, Breath of the Wild has basically a really good variety, and I don't even think they need to improve upon it that much. Maybe add a few newer dishes. Same holds true for bows and shields. For side quests, I want them to add some more side quests along the lines of the Terrytown building quest in Breath of the Wild, which I thought was very fun and very rewarding. Moreover, I would like to see more Majora's Mask-esque side quests that really involve the lives of the characters in the game, and even possibly add into the main plot. Say you might have to complete certain side quests in order to unlock the full ending, like you did with the Anju Cafe side quest in Majora's Mask. More side quests like that I think would really spruce up and add more replay value to the next Zelda game. This is the other thing that I definitely think is the biggest thing I want changed in the next Zelda game. While I loved Breath of the Wild's atmospheric music for that game, there should definitely be more variety to the music next time around. Bring back some of the grand, sweeping, and epic symphonic things of Zelda games from the past. I, for one, would love to finally hear a fully orchestrated rendition of the Dark World theme from A Link to the Past, as well as the Lost Woods, Song of Storms, and a new rendition even of the Hyrule Field theme. If the game ends up being about the rebuilding of Hyrule after Breath of the Wild, then the music could start out more atmospheric and subtle and become more and more like traditional Zelda music as you progress through the game. I think that would be a brilliant way to blend story and music together. For the visual design, I think Breath of the Wild pretty much looked perfect as it is, and I thought it really captured the Zelda series better than any Zelda visual style has to date. So, honestly, all I'd say from Nintendo with the next Zelda game, the Switch having more horsepower than the Wii U by quite a little bit, use that horsepower to just enhance the visuals even further, as I think Breath of the Wild already looks great as it is, but the Switch is definitely capable of more than I think Breath of the Wild showed off. So, really, just keep the same visual style, just enhance it, is all I have to say. It looks great already. In closing, Breath of the Wild is unquestionably a masterpiece, and is in my opinion the best game I have ever played. So I want Nintendo to just build upon and refine on what they have already managed to so brilliantly accomplish with their masterpiece game Breath of the Wild going forward to the next Zelda game. Nintendo has likely already considered some of these ideas, and likely, I should just definitely thought of things beyond my imagination. I, for one, can't wait to see where the legend of Zelda Legend goes from here. As it is, Breath of the Wild shattered all my wildest expectations, pun intended somewhat, and fixed many of the issues that so many open world games suffer from, and as far as I'm concerned, basically perfected the genre. Now, I would just love to see Nintendo take some of these ideas into consideration for their next Zelda game going forward. With all that to say, ladies and gentlemen, I just love making these videos, and Zelda being my favorite franchise, I just love talking about it. So tell me what you guys think. What do you want from the next Legend of Zelda game? And let me know in the comments below. Also, my next Zelda related video will be talking about possible 2D Zelda games, as well as the potential of an Ocarina of Time remake, since that game is almost 20 years old and is one of my all-time favorite games ever. Last note, I will be attending the Game Developers Conference this week from Wednesday to Friday, and I will definitely be trying to catch Nintendo's Splatoon 2 and ARMS seminar, as well as a couple of others. I will definitely try and get a video talking about my experience and what I thought of that event. It's the first time I've ever gone to an event like this, so I'm pretty excited. All that to say, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, comment, and yeah, I just really appreciate y'all watching these videos, and I hope to see you guys next time. Peace out.